Hi everyone, it's Tony Campana from Tony Marie's Creations, and I just wanted to um, give you a few tips for making the card. I do have a printed tutorial for this card, and there's just a few pieces of the assembly that I wanted to cover that doesn't always translate as well when you're trying to type or write something out. So I thought I would just jump on and show you a couple of the things I think will make this a little bit easier, or hopefully anyway. And this is from my card classes in June to make pop-up cards or fun fold cards, I guess I would say. And the first card we did make was a pop-up card. And I used the Sunset Coast stamp set. Basically for the sentiments. I did use some of the water in the sailboat, but I also used either of these two die cuts in the card. So that's the set that we used. And the card, let me just grab a completed one. So I went through a few iterations of this before I got it to exactly how I wanted it. I did follow sort of a pattern from another demonstrator. I don't remember her name off the bat, but I kept playing around with it until I finally got it to where I was happy with the card. So this is the front of the card, and then when you open it up, you get this pop-up portion of the card. So again, I want to give you a few little tips for how to put this together and make it a quicker process rather than trying to just read the instructions on the tutorial. So the two important things are die cutting the pieces that we need for the front and the center. And as I said, the measurements for these pieces will be in the tutorial. This one is 3.5 by 3.5, and this one is 4.25 by 3.5. But what I did with the dies, as you can see, so for this one, I wanted it to be, it has to be in the center of that 3.5 by 3.5 square. I think that's 3.5 by 3.5, or was it 3? Yes, 3.5 by 3.5 in the center. And then for this one, I wanted to leave roughly an inch, or this looks like a little less, but about an inch at the bottom. This is going to be the piece that we're going to cut apart to put on the front of the card. And what I mean by cut apart, I'm going to move this over, is that we want to remove this top arch part of the die cut. So what it will look like when you're done is this. So I placed a cut here on this edge, and then I rounded off here to make it look more like it's a cliff sort of thing on this. And then this part is not needed. So that's just scrap. So what we end up having are these two pieces here that we're going to work with. And I'll go ahead and work with this piece here. This is going to be the inside of the card. And my DSP, this is 3.5 by 3.5. So my DSP is actually 3 by 3. So a little bit smaller. Because I want to attach this, I didn't want any excess layer around here. But what I had to be careful of is that I don't want my glue to go beyond this square, because if I do, then the motion or the movement of the card is not going to work. So to make that a little bit easier, what I found worked best is for me to put, and I don't normally do it this way, but a very thin layer of glue around these four edges. A little bit off there. And as we know with white glue, less is more. We don't want to put a big bunch of it, because then it's going to squish out from around there. And then I'm just going to, well, I can already see I might have gone over a little bit too much here, so I may need to use a wet wipe, but maybe not. We'll see. So I'm just going to lay that down there. And yeah, I am going to want to use a wet wipe, which I always have handy. And I'm just going to dab that a little bit. So you see what I mean when I say you just need a very thin coat. And we are just dabbing this. We're not rubbing, because if you rub it, you're going to start breaking up the paper's fibers, and you don't want to do that. So this is going to be the piece that goes on the inside. And it might be a little bit off in the back, but that doesn't matter because nobody's going to see the back. So although I do see that I'm going to want to trim this, so not a problem, just an extra step. I should have been a little bit more careful, but see, this is what happens when you do these things. You can show I make mistakes, and usually they're pretty simple to fix. All right, so that's going to be our piece for the inside. So I'm going to set that up here. Now for the card front, I'm using the paper that goes with this suite, and it's called Scenic Coast, and it's got just some beautiful scenery in this packet itself. It's just absolutely gorgeous. It was on, it was temporarily unavailable, and I just saw that it did come back in. I don't know if it's still unavailable or still available, but if you see it and you want it, I would quickly grab that. And I took a piece of this Designer Series paper, which is 6 by 6, and I cut it 5 1/4 by 4, and then I cut this down. The small piece is 2 inches, so I cut 2 inches off the bottom. Okay, and then I've got a piece of Secret C, and it's folded a little differently than what we normally do when I'm doing cards. You would kind of think maybe it's supposed to go this way, but actually it's not. It's going to go this way. So I am going to go ahead and just put on my DSP pieces. And again, I want to make sure that it's following the pattern. I'm just going to flatten this out so it makes it a little bit easier. I'm going to line that up so I have an equal amount of distance around that. Okay, and then a little die cut there from someplace. Okay, and then this is going to go on the top part here. Okay, so then that's what our front piece is going to look like. So the next step is going to be to place this part, okay? And I did this a couple different ways. Even during class, I did something a little bit different, but you don't really need to put a lot of glue on this piece, and it's pretty intricate. So again, you want to be careful when you're using liquid, and I do recommend liquid glue. Otherwise, the double-sided tape is going to show behind all your openings there. I just wanted to visually figure out where I wanted this to go. I want to see a little bit of that cliff part, so I'm just going to visually kind of line that up there. I think that's kind of where I want it to go. And I'm bringing this edge out here just to the edge of the Secret C card base, okay? So if you notice with this lighthouse, it has a tendency, it wants to pop up a little bit. So I am going to put just the tiniest bit of glue, and I mean tiny. I'm just going to put a couple little pieces here. And I'm not attaching a lot to it at all. And then if I go back here, and because it's liquid glue, I do have the chance to move my paper around a little bit. But you know, I'm just going to do it this way. I think I'm going to do it this way. And then let that lay down there. And this will make sense in just a minute. I'm sure you're thinking like, what in the world is she doing? And I see even that little tiny bit, I had a little bit of glue that wanted to pop out there. Okay, so now this pops open, and all we're going to do is just run some tape on the sides here. Sure, right at the end of this tape runner, of course. Okay, and then that's what's going to hold all that in place, okay? So our card front is pretty much done. I did go ahead and I had stamped my sentiment before I started the video. And you have an option of either putting this flat or popping it up. And I've got some dimensionals lying around here, so let me just put a little bit here. I don't know about you, but when I get to the end of my dimensional page, after you use all the full dots, don't throw this away. You've still got plenty of material to use. And I don't even cut it. I just kind of break it apart and lay that there. And of course I did go a tiny bit over on this one, so let me trim that edge so it's not hanging out there. And we'll go ahead and put our sentiment on the front. Of course my backing is not peeling off as easily as I would like, so I'm just going to center that and place that on the front. Okay, so that's the card front. Again, not very difficult. When you do the lighthouse, I'm sorry, when you do the sailboat, let me find my sailboat card. Well, of course now I can't find the one I wanted to show you, but you're going to do the same thing with your the larger piece on the sailboat. You're going to cut it a little bit differently than we did here, but it's the same idea as we want to remove this top half of that die cut. Okay, so that's the front, and I'm going to go ahead and move that off to the side. And now we're going to work on what the centerpiece is. And for those who attended my class, this is going to look a little bit different. I did cut the folding mechanism for the class, and I did it 2.5 by 4 inches, and it really wasn't the best cut. I really should have left a little bit of an extra bit here. So the instructions are going to show that this is going to be 4.25 by 2.5, and then I scored it at 1 inch increments, and it's going to leave that little bit of a flap here. So what I want to do is I'm going to build my folding mechanism, and again a little bit of glue, and I'm not even going to try to hold this up and try to fold it into place. I'm just going to let that come together at the seam, and I'm going to give that a good press and give it a minute to let that set up. Okay, so now you've got this little box. Okay, and for the inside of the card, so this is my basic 4.25 by 11 inch, and it's scored at 5.5. And I went ahead and did some work on the inside. I stamped my sentiment, and I had some extra strips of the DSP, so I added that to the bottom. What you'll want to make sure you do on this is, if you want to stamp your sentiment first, you can, but make sure it's down far enough, because you're going to have this piece in here as the fold, and you want to make sure that your sentiment is going to be, it clears that. Okay, so the idea is that this piece is going to go on the inside of the card, and it needs to attach at the base, and it needs to attach at the back. Okay, so there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can do them singly. You can go ahead and put some glue on the bottom, and then put some glue and put it in place, and then put some glue on the back and hold that up. Or, since I reconfigured this and made it so that you've got that little bit of an edge there, you can fold this flat, put glue on the back, and then make sure that it lines up on the score. It needs to line up on that score line. Okay, so let's do that. I'll put a little bit of glue, And I always recommend using liquid glue when you're doing anything that's going to be opened and closed a lot, because it's the better glue. It's going to stay in place. If you use double-sided tape, there's a chance that that's going to pick up off of your paper, and it's going to not give you the movement you want. So I'm going to try to try to see over my camera here and line this up so that it is on the score line. And with the liquid glue, you get a little bit of wiggle room. So I'm going to press this down. Okay. And then now when I pop this up, I get that little box that I need for the inside of my card. And the way we're going to attach that is, I found it easier. So I am going to put my glue on this section here. I don't know exactly where I need to put it on here, so I don't want to mess that up. So I'm going to put my glue on here, and I'm going to open this up and then hold it this way. Because if you have this too high, you're going to see the moving mechanism in the back. And if you put it too low, there's a chance that this is not going to open and close properly. So let's put some glue here. Okay. And then, as I said, I'm going to open this up and I'm going to slide this in. Let me try to get it a better camera angle here, or I can even hold it up. I'm going to make sure that my focal piece here is flat on the bottom, and I'm going to just put my fingers in behind there and just press that. Okay, so now when I close the card, the first time you close it, you are going to need to give it a good fold. So let's get our bone folder in here. Okay, and now when I open it up, I've got that movement that I'm looking for. So the next piece of the card would be to attach the front. And this covers it completely. Okay. And I am going to, I think I'm going to use my liquid glue because it will give me a little bit of time to adjust it if I need to. And I might be a little bit more generous when I'm doing a full sheet like this. But again, a little bit goes a long way. And do one of two, well, because that's already in the center and it's going to probably cause me some problems if I tried to open the card up and lay it flat. I'm just going to lay this on here. And again, I've got liquid glue, so I've got a couple of seconds where I can just move that in place. Okay. And last but not least, there's a die in the set that has seagulls, and it punches out 3 at the same time. So I'm going to use my tweezers and try to get these little guys out. And they are going in different directions. So you have a big one, a medium one, and then you've got a small one. Let me find where that little guy is, because he's a little bit harder. There he is. Okay, look how little that is. He is tiny. So you have 3 seagulls that you can place on. And again, these are so tiny that if you have tweezers that you keep on your workspace, I highly recommend. And I'm just putting the tiniest bit of glue on the back, and I'll have that little guy kind of going over the sun. These reverse tweezers work really well for little pieces like this. So I'm just literally putting a dot, not very much, and I'll put him here. And then I'll get Big Brother. And again, just a dot, couple dots, not much. And I'll put him up there and press him down. And then I'll add some bling to this, but again, that's basically the finished card to give the recipient a nice little surprise when they open it up. And you could actually switch this around. You could do a lighthouse on the front, and you could do a sailboat on the inside and pull the theme together, or you can use the same as I have done with this card. So I hope there's a little bit of suggestions on putting this together. Hope that helps with the printed tutorial that goes along with this, and I hope you will give this card a try. Thanks.